Hey everyone, welcome to our first ever Creator Roundtable. We are sitting here alongside Cleo Abram, Zach King, Ryan Trahan, Michelle Khare, and Ammar Kandil from Yes Theory. All of us at the table are nominated for Streamies in the upcoming 13th Annual Streamy Awards, and we're here to have a discussion.
Woohoo! All right.
That was awesome.
Yeah. I didn't anticipate the clapping.
How you also stuck in all of us.
All of us.
Yeah. Gotta make sure people know.
The people should know. Zach, 10 years ago.
We're starting here. We're starting with you.
You won your first Streamy in 2014.
It's crazy.
And we wanted to ask you, what has changed about your career from 2014 to now over the past decade?
Since 2014, that was around the time that I was on Vine. I had a YouTube channel as well, but I was at that point probably in the middle of abandoning it, and it's still abandoned to this day because Vine took over and really changed the trajectory of my career. Like overnight, it was the difference of going to get chicken wings at Albertsons, and all of a sudden, the next day after Vine, like in a few weeks, I couldn't go because there was fans, that knew I got chicken wings there. But I think what it did for me at that time was like, I was doing YouTube and having a 6-second limitation just switched my mindset. I just think I needed a little change of format, and it flipped it on its head for me, and all of a sudden that resonated with the audience. It's kind of that process that I think that any filmmaker or artist or creator goes through is like, you're trying to find your voice, you're trying to find your thing, and you maybe do that sometimes you get lucky and you do it for a year and you find it, but otherwise like us or me, it was many years of doing it before anyone really saw it, and then you find like it's your thing meets a little bit of mainstream. Yeah. And that's kind of where I was in 2014.
I just remember the story as you're talking. I think when we first got to LA in 2016, you were one of the first, if not the first person who was like famous / accomplished on, in this space that had responded to us. And I just, as you were speaking, I just remember how happy we were at that moment to have, to get a response from you and potentially collaborate. So it just hit me.
What I remember about that was that
you remember?
Yeah. So there was a group. You guys weren't even, I don't think, formed as Yes Theory yet.
We're a generation. Why not?
Yes. And then you reached out to my team and I on email, and I think through even my brother-in-law at the time, and he was like, "Dude, this group is doing something really cool." And you guys you were gonna come to the studio, and we didn't meet because you guys then went off. And I don't know what you did on that trip, but then it formed into Yes Theory on that trip.
Wow.
And then within that year watching you guys, it just started blowing up.
Wow.
And I was like,
we never really met. I just remember, I just realized that we hadn't met in person ever.
Yeah.
So this is I'm getting to tell you that. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I feel like there's these moments of validation in the career that obviously they come with financial success, they come with viewership, subscriber milestones, but to me there's nothing like the validation of a creator that you respect reaching out to you. Mm-hmm. That to me is there's nothing like that.
And I don't do that enough. I try to DM people once in a while, just being like, "Hey, I'm a big fan, just so you know." I don't know, because it's weird. We're all creators in this space, but I've been watching Cleo for a long time, and I've never DM'd her "big fan," but seeing her here.
Even you saying that,
But it's we all have that. We all watch people too in this space.
Yeah. Cleo, you have made 22 videos on your YouTube channel and crossed 1 million subscribers in those 22 videos, which is pretty incredible. I feel like your rise has been so fun to watch. Do you feel that sense of I've made it? Was crossing 1 million subs for you this moment?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean,
I
I felt like it was a milestone, and I felt like there was a certain amount of credibility. I actually asked a friend beforehand who had crossed 1 million, how does it feel? Did anything change? And he said, no, nothing changed. Maybe I have a little bit more self-confidence. And I was like, so I'm doing all this work in order to get, feel a little bit better about the work that I'm doing?
It's crazy to hear you say that hitting 1 million subscribers wasn't crazy for you. I feel like maybe it's just the timeline of everything, but whenever I hit 100,000 or 1 million, it literally felt like all of my dreams came true. Everything finally clicked. I feel like I made it, man. I feel like even with 100,000, I was like, driving down the street of my college town listening to Post Malone, just like, this is all I ever did. And it's so crazy to hear though. I wonder if do you feel like there's just so much more like competition, or do you feel like the platform has matured to the point where that doesn't feel significant, or do you think you just have different metrics of success?
It feels really significant.
Okay.
But it doesn't feel like I've made it. Like the idea that it has worked enough for me to feel like this is my career now, massive deal. Can't believe it. Mind blowing. Amazing. The idea that I've made it, no way.
No.
Can't imagine. Absolutely
Not whatsoever.
The moment I think I've made it is probably when I'm going to start being complacent.
Totally.
Yes.
You know, like if I've already looked at this career and gone, I did it. Like it's kind of over in
Right.
a way. Like we have to have something that we're continually pushing for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I guess there's new
Even almost
problems
feeling
every
like an outsider in, because the second we got into this career, you're like, at least for us, we were looking at all of you being like, whoa, how do we become that?
I think we were lucky enough to actually be in very close proximity to you, Ammar, and to Yes Theory, to actually have eyes on what it looked like to be doing it, you know? And so we had a frame of reference of like, oh, that's the career. And I'm curious for everyone here, especially for you two, for Ammar and Michelle. Both of you have said publicly, Ammar, you've said one of your goals is to win an Oscar. Michelle, you've publicly stated on our show actually that you want to win an Emmy. Do you guys feel like YouTube is the end goal, or do you feel like it's a stepping stone for you to something else?
Dang.
So I'd like to state that it's no longer one of my goals to win an Oscar.
Okay, on the record.
Just
yeah.
on the record.
It's now an
Wait,
econ.
what changed?
They've missed their chance.
What changed?
Honestly, it's just more of I don't want my goals to be determined by external factors that I have that I can't control.
Right.
I think in my mind, and obviously the moment when I was asked that question, it was when I was working on Project Iceman, the doc that Yes Theory just released. And during that time, I was, that's what I'm more thinking about. But even then, I remember I was more attached to being a part of a process that is Oscar worthy and creating something that people will deem it as Oscar worthy, which thankfully I feel like we've accomplished. So that's why it's not at all about like being shortlisted or being at the actual award ceremony. YouTube is not the end result, but it is the platform that allows us to communicate all these ideas to the world in a very effective and free way.
Yeah.
And Michelle, you've won a Streamy for your series.
Yes.
Challenge accepted.
We were very fortunate to finally beat Hot Ones.
That's honestly huge.
That's actually a huge
Hot
feat.
Ones is like tough competition. Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who voted for us. You can feel free to do the same again this year.
Okay.
Hot Ones is also in our category this year. I guess for the Emmy question, I feel very similar to you. That saying that is more like that's of the quality I want to be creating. I want to be creating content that it could be seen in the same category as some of your greatest unscripted doc reality shows that you see on classic television. And for us, I think that is really the goal, is what's the best story we can tell, far more than it is actually getting the trophy. I mean, when you really look into how you get an Emmy, it's an extremely expensive, political, laborious process. And the majority of that process has very little to do with the content itself. So, I mean, I can't control if someone's going to vote for us for an Emmy, but again, feel free to vote for us. But I can control how good the content is, or how how much I feel the story can touch others. And I've learned that what is the best asset of YouTube is that the content is within your control. Having worked for a network, been on a network show, so much of that is outside of your control. And in my opinion, like what's going on with the strikes and everything, what is happening in our vertical of the world is really putting a spotlight on the importance of ownership of content and the importance of having a hand on every end of the production process and not waiting for someone before or after you to finish the project you care about.
Absolutely.
I want to open up that stepping stone question to the rest of you. And in that context too, of having full ownership, are you interested in producing for the streamers of the world, the Netflixes of the world? Are you more interested now than ever? How do you look at that?
I don't think I have the skill set, to be honest. But also I genuinely just love the process of YouTube. Like the amateurism is so fun. I feel like I'm kind of curious with especially with you, Zach. Like how has your ambition changed over time, and like what are your metrics of success? And are you thinking about like a stepping stone?
Yeah, it's interesting because like, what do the streamers offer that we don't already have access to on our channels? I think the biggest reason for me to ever in the future work with a studio or a streamer is the budgets, right? Like the only place I'm gonna get $50 million to make a movie someday is probably from there versus self-financing that.
Yeah.
So
Wait, is that a goal of yours?
that's a goal of mine, yeah.
Dang,
So,
Zach, so cool.
you know, like that'd be so fun, and that's why like maybe that's when I made it, when I made a movie or whatever. But just the filmmaker in me, like I love YouTube, and that's where I'm distributing now. And I think I always will have a heart for YouTube and just online, and that's where my community is. But I also want to make bigger projects, and I just don't think, unless you get really creative with crowdsourcing, which you could do, or crowdfunding, like I think it's gonna be in the Hollywood system to make something.
Yeah.
I think there is a common mistake that people make is actually thinking that the streamer world, outside of budget, which I think is a very valid argument, that they can actually offer to a creator more than what they have. In reality, the impact of something doing well on YouTube can far exceed the impact of something winning an Oscar, because all of a sudden you have access to people everywhere in the world, the ones that know the Oscars, that the Academy exists or not, like they will have access to your piece of content. I think that there's so much power in that, and I also think that's why streamers don't release their numbers for actually how many people watch their stuff, because that's what they're hiding.
That's actually something we wanted to talk to you guys about, because that is one of the biggest problems that I think Hollywood is potentially facing right now, is that they're not transparent with the numbers. And it gets difficult when it comes to compensating creatives. And that's part of the problem with the writer's strike. Obviously for us, our numbers are very public. When we grow, it's easy for people and for teams that you have to assume that revenue is growing as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Or to see it because they're logged in.
Because they're seeing it potentially, right? They have access to YouTube Studio, they can see it.
Yeah.
How do you go about properly compensating your team when they understand the success that they're contributing to?
Wow. Good question, man.
Hey,
That's a deep one. No, I think something I'm really passionate about, because I had a big team at one point, but I feel like everyone was kind of making less money, including me. Like it was just not a very efficient operation. And I was making kind of like higher produced content, which cost a lot more money. But I feel like ultimately, I didn't want to be a boss either. I didn't want to be like a manager. And so I kind of restarted. And I found 2 guys, and I committed. I told myself, no matter how much money we make, I'm gonna stick with these 2. I'm not gonna hire more people because I love them to death, and I'm not gonna have a ceiling on how much they can make. So I feel like it's actually become much more of a partnership, and they know how much we make as a channel too. And I think if they can see how much they make and we have that accountability, then that leads me to try to eliminate greed from my life and just be transparent with them. Like I want them to achieve their financial goals through this, because they're helping me do that as well. So that's it's been empowering to kind of like just have a small team that feels very honest and
they're connected to the revenue, meaning they get some percentage.
yeah. There's also the conversation of recognition too.
Right.
Like that's like a form of currency for a lot of teams. Like they want to be appreciated and like public facing even, which is a different conversation too that you have to have.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with accreditation. I mean, where I worked before I had my own YouTube channel, there was not the level of public accreditation that we have now. And so, I mean, I remember like leaving my job and writing down all the things that I loved about working there and all the things that I wish I could have done differently. And one of those was every single video will have a full-blown credits list like it's IMDb. It doesn't matter if you did the thumbnail or if you edited the whole thing or if you did one graphic, your name it has to be on the project, and we have everyone double check it and everything. In addition to, competitive pay is a big conversation that I think a lot of creators, it's important for us to all be talking about, like how can we elevate the pay across the board on our large channels, because then not only does that attract better talent from traditional Hollywood, but also empowers our employees and makes everyone feel like this is for real. For some reason, I think there's still this essence of like Wild West of what we're doing, which is true, because anybody can open a YouTube account. But also, like, if at the top we can set the tone for a standardized pay structure and floor rates, minimums, and things like that, that elevates everybody and makes us more competitive with traditional.
My first ever job as a video journalist was as a director on Vox's Netflix show, and that experience was like, first of all, could not ask for a better, more fast-paced learning environment, and I was able to work with all kinds of other people, making a thing that I was really proud of, with a lot of creative responsibility, but without the managerial responsibility that anybody has if they're doing creative work at that level on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like, I was able to learn different skills at different points, which is helpful. Some, like, a lot of people when they're building a channel are learning both skills all at once.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
But to answer the question about streamers, I think the hardest thing about working either at a media company or trying to pitch things for streamers is that someone else has to say yes to your project. And that can be incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, like the cost of owning your content end to end is owning all of the problems and the obstacles and workflows associated to get there also.
I want to touch on this concept of having to say yes to an idea, because in theory, yes, you know, like if you were working with a streamer, someone would have to say yes and greenlight the idea. But Zach, I think about your content quite a bit with this. Whenever I watch one of your videos and like a room fills up with water or some insane thing is happening, I'm like, how did you build a process to say yes to that? Because that is quite a bit of investment for a short clip. And how confident are you when you see an idea that it will perform?
I found that the crazier the ideas sound, those are usually the ones like most producers, and with my producer hat on, I'll definitely say like, oh no, you know, I can give you 10 reasons. To me, it's not super courageous to like say no. It's way more difficult and brave to say yes and like lean into the ideas or the questions or the curiosities that make you uncomfortable. Because there's usually some idea there that's like way better than all the other simple like, oh, we could pull this one out tomorrow because it's really easy. But in the process, it's having a common language amongst the team. Like, you know, we have these water cooler moments, or when you're making coffee, you're going to tell your coworker about what you're working on. And they're like, I'm going to fill this room with water. And like, if in that moment they're like, oh, well, yeah, that's like kind of dangerous, right? Or like, what's the stunt team? Or like, or where are you going to find a pool that's like 30 feet deep? Or you know how much that's going to cost? Like, all those will come up. But if you have a creative language around it, we'll just say like, well, that's cool. What phase is the idea in? And it'll be like, well, I'm building it up. So that means I want you to like contribute to the idea. Maybe you have a better idea. Is there fish in there? Is there like do we figure out how to actually go shoot it in the ocean? You know, like build on it versus refinement, which is like, yeah, I'm actually trying to figure out how to produce this thing now. Like, do you know anybody with a pool? Or like, do you know James Cameron's stunt team divers? Because we maybe need them, you know?
Yeah. On the topic of ideas, I wanted to ask you about this, Ryan, because we started our year talking about the concept of originality. And we had a conversation around the challenge on YouTube with plagiarism, where when someone sees an idea go out and it works, super easy to copy the title, thumbnail, and we've even seen this year exact scripts being copied. And you had that happen to you on one of your shorts, an exact script was copied. But you found a way to iterate on ideas and feel like whatever you're doing is fresh. And I'm just curious about your idea process. Yeah, I've peeked into it a little bit. I've got to see some of what you do, and I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, well, we have a think tank. So a couple years ago, me and Eric, we were actually on the phone, and we were like, we just can't come up with enough good ideas. And it was actually his idea. He's like, I'm thinking about doing a think tank where I just have some people that are interested in YouTube to spitball ideas. And I did the same thing around the same time, and I've just been doing that since. And it's kind of like, it's become like a fun group of friends, like community, where we just sort of just talk about YouTube as a whole. What things are you guys finding interesting right now? But I'm always able to give them feedback of like why I think an idea is good or bad. And I feel like ultimately, it feels like the ideas we end up doing there is precedent for. So the idea of originality and plagiarism, it's kind of like, I kind of feel like I'm walking the line many times. Like I don't even know necessarily which side I'm defending sometimes, because I'll be inspired by another YouTuber and I'm like, wait, did I just like sort of copy that? But I think whenever you see something that's blatant, that's when you know, okay, that's not what I'm doing. And it does feel like sometimes when you see a thumbnail that's literally the same asset with a face replaced, it truly feels like there's a real theft there, because you think about the team that put the thumbnail set together or the team that edited the photo, they got paid for that work, and to steal that and sort of monetize it, it is someone else's work, and there feels like it's actually kind of sad. But I think it's a fun conversation to have, but it's so hard to keep track of, you know?
When you do that think tank, what happens when you like an idea?
I take a screenshot and make sure I download. Well, typically it's actually in Discord. Discord. Yeah. And they present.
Did you just do a brand deal in our Roundtable? Are you going to be paid for that, Ryan?
No. I love Discord though. So reach out to me.
Brand heisted.
Yeah. But they'll do a presentation, and whether it's I give like assignments. I feel like a second grade teacher sometimes, but it'll be like think of 4 original titles and thumbnails. And 10 random titles that you just sort of spitball. And then they present them, and if I like the idea, I'll screenshot it, and we'll like discuss of how can we make this a little bit better, or like, oh my gosh, that's the best idea I've ever seen, it's perfect, we're gonna do that this month. So it's kind of all over the place, but a lot of it is just trying to get 1 degree better every week, just improving like what we think YouTube's headed towards, because we actually had our first hypothesis week last month, and it was basically like we've just been kind of reiterating the same things over and over. Like the meta has changed so much. Like the content we were making a year ago or 2 years ago, if we still try to do it, it's not going to be received as well as it used to. So that's just what I felt. I feel like YouTube's changed a lot in the past year or so. So we were like, make a hypothesis. What do you think YouTube is right now? And we'll test it. And it made me feel like smart. I was like, I like hypothesis.
It feels very Mark Rober.
Yeah, right?
Hypothesis,
yeah, we have theories here.
Yeah.
Can I ask you that question? What's the hypothesis?
What was your theory?
I could actually bring it out. I don't know it off the top of my head, word for word.
Yeah.
I have a lot of screenshots. You guys want to see one?
You want to see my screenshots?
I'll show you one of me in a silly hat, because this video will probably come out before.
So yeah, is the screenshot a thumbnail? Like, are they pitching you a thumbnail?
Here's an example of a video we're filming. Show the camera there. So we're doing 1-star Yelp reviews soon.
Nice.
So hey, think of a thumbnail. Me in a silly hat. That's pretty funny. Feels like randomly.
Stars should be bigger.
Yeah, the stars should be bigger. See, that's what you would have said.
What does
there.
what does the hat have to do with 1-star Yelp though?
Well, the review is, I tested 1-star Yelp reviews, and the review says, would it serve me because of my hat? So if I wear a silly hat in the restaurant, we'll test it. But all that to say, yeah, it's a fun process, and our hypothesis right now is that like these traditional bangers where you're doing something super sensational isn't necessarily people want to click on as much. That's what I've experienced. Yeah. And I even love y'all's new cab video because it feels like it's conceptual, but there feels like this funny human element there. So we're trying to lean more into humanity of things and kind of things that are more ironic. It's a test though, so we'll see.
I wanna ask you guys that question. What is YouTube right now?
Yes.
I think it's in a transitional moment.
Yeah.
Like I think it's the most transitional moment that I feel like I've ever seen. And I think there's a really compelling reason for why podcasting and conversation as content is picking up. And it's similar to what Ryan was saying. I think we're at a moment where people want to see what actually happened in that room, right? Like we've been so inundated with these sensational spectacles that also have manufactured stakes in them. Where it's like, if I don't do this, then this happens. And you're like, well, is that actually a stake?
Yeah.
Like,
Or did you just make
or
that
to just
up?
make that up? Which the answer is typically you made that up.
But that led to views.
Right.
Like views have never been more available, or they were incredibly available.
Sure.
It was just like, I can look at what you're doing, and I'll do something like it, I'll promise it, and I will get viewership. And I think the next stage of it is going for brand.
Right.
Which is not as available.
No.
Yes.
Brand means I can stop uploading. 6 months later, I come back and everyone's like, yes, I can't wait to watch the
That
show.
is definitely what I think about.
Right? I think
There's-
that's what's next.
There's a reason why I launched the whole channel as a show.
Totally.
And I have that name still, and it hasn't changed. And there's a premise to the show. And from the moments before we launched, like there was a philosophy behind what every video would be, and there was a name to it, and there was branding on top of the show. That was the hypothesis that we were testing was like, is this if you can bet on not just someone liking a video, but someone liking the premise of the show.
Yeah,
will they then come back for more regularly than they would if they just liked you? Like, I don't have to bank on me as much.
I think you made the right assumption, but I would be afraid to do that as a creator starting out, going independent, to stick to a format. Even when Samir and I started, we launched a lot of shows, we kept changing. We couldn't.
A lot of shows.
We launched so many, I think, because we weren't as confident.
Yeah.
Right? And we were so quick to move. So I really commend you for starting with that belief and sticking with it.
Your first video on the channel, I think it was your announcement video on what the channel was gonna be. Yeah. And my question for you is, how did you know? Because that was like so specific. You announced like, this is what the channel is. This is what it's gonna be called. And when I'm watching, I'm like, how does she know that already? Like, and has this been like a year in the making? And how does she know that's gonna work? Because you're setting it was your announcement.
Yeah.
How did you know that?
So the first thing was I did not know that it was going to work. So it was a launch bet. It was like starting a startup with a specific product. And the question I was asking the world was like, do you also want this? So the specific show is Huge If True, which is an optimistic show about tech. And the reason why I wanted to make an optimistic show about tech was that I love watching explanatory videos about technology. I love sci-fi. I love technology journalism, deep investigations. But it felt to me like there was a flavor missing, which was, what could the world look like in the future in a positive way if we get this right, if we use technology in the way that it has been used in many ways over the last 100 years to make people's lives better. And I really wanted to watch that, and I couldn't find it. And so I wanted to go out and make it. And that was actually the thing that pulled me away from a job that I loved in order to go make this show. So the whole thing was an experiment. It happened to work.
Yeah.
There's totally an alternate future in which I would have pivoted in 4 months if it hadn't.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us get obsessed with our particular concept, right? Challenge Accepted is a vision that you have of work that I think you wanted to watch. And I think, to your point about brand, it allows people to buy into something that's bigger than you and bigger than any individual video. So what I say at the end of my shorts isn't, hey, if you like this video, follow me for more. It's, hey, if you like optimistic science and tech work, if you want to support Huge If True, subscribe.
Back to the question of what is YouTube right now, to me it almost feels like we're in a moment of, there's a lot of videos like that are coming from new creators, and not a lot of channels that are growing. I think you're an outlier, Cleo, that your channel kind of just popped and came, but I think it's because of that confidence. Like, we're seeing a lot of viral videos again kind of pop, and like that's the topic of conversation for the week, and then we don't. It's hard to follow.
Jack Conte did a really good video on the nature of the internet and how it was like first organized based on like the creator and then the community around, and now it's this algorithmic bubbles of preference. And which I wanted to ask, like, as you're saying that YouTube is shifting more to be brand, more brand than it is like these one-off videos. It almost feels like there's two opposing forces working within YouTube. One is pushing for brand, but also the other, when you see what's actually working, is more. It's more of like these, preference bubbles where people are getting these random videos, but not the consistency of seeing, a stream of videos coming from this specific creator that you had consciously decided to subscribe to, but now you're just getting this cocktail that YouTube decides for you.
I think you're right that that's actually where it is in reality moving. That on any given day, a random creator can provide what is right for the algorithm, for someone's algorithm that day, and it will show up. But that person, in order to actually find success, I think needs to think about brand. And while YouTube, the meta may not actually be brand.
So it's like a stage 2 now, right?
It may be algorithmic still.
I see.
And heavily algorithmic.
This is the trap that you see on TikTok. Someone is experimenting with lots of different ideas. They have one that hits. And then because that one hit, they feel probably correctly that the most advantageous thing for them to do is to almost replicate that video over and over and over again. And then they get really sick of it because that's really boring creatively. And then they get frustrated that they've been isolated into this one particular niche. You might end up being a person that you don't want to be publicly or in your own creative process.
Or potentially just replaceable.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of really successful creators, but you could probably move them out and put someone else in, and audience members are like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Still fills the same amount of time for me in a day.
Right?
But you guys are an example of the growth that can come from.
I thought she was going to say.
You guys are exactly.
You were going to say.
You guys are totally
Any
new
year
place.
now.
You guys are totally replaceable.
Any other Indian dude, I can
Ton of multicultural duos out there.
I was like, perfect follow-up.
It's like, welcome in.
Anyone want to step in?
Anish and Scott.
You guys are an example of finding your thing after having many different kinds of successful content on YouTube, and it seeming to feel right from the outside for both of you.
Not successful content on YouTube. Yeah. Well, I think what we
And
didn't
why?
realize was this was what we were doing off camera, and then we would turn on the camera and try and do something else. And then there was a day where we were like, what if we did the thing that we just like to do that's happening off camera as the thing we do on camera? And luckily, again, we worked with creators like Ammar and Yes Theory, and we had relationships where we could say, do you guys want to record a conversation? And they would say yes. And then the social proof and kind of like the reps come in, and then you get more and more opportunities to do it. So it was actually just the realization of what we're doing is a lot harder than what it needs to be, because we aren't actually these guys who can do challenge videos or do anything that, like, we tried vlogging and it was a complete disaster. Like, so uninteresting. And we just couldn't do it. And we knew we wanted to be creators, but we didn't have the confidence that you had of what type of creator we wanted to be.
And we lacked the confidence, even when we started talking about YouTube and YouTube creators, which is what we loved. We lacked the confidence that that could be a career, that would have enough viewership.
Yeah.
Because there were times when we were making videos again and again and again about creators, but it was like, it's not really paying the bills.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
this is not going to work
was
for
dark
two
times.
guys getting
Yeah.
into their
Yeah.
30s,
Yeah.
you know?
People know that they had like basically decided to shut down, and Colin had moved to the East Coast. That's right. Like it was this thing came
we
back
did,
from the
yeah.
dead. From the dead.
Yeah. We had reached just like this rock bottom moment of having a negative balance in our bank account of $18,000 and trying for 6 years to make it on YouTube, and it just didn't work. And he moved back to Jersey, and we made a video on the channel that's about quitting, and we never published it. We just couldn't publish it.
Dang.
Where we were saying goodbye to the channel of like, this was great, we tried our best.
Is it unlisted?
It's unlisted.
Yeah.
Well, it's not
react
unlisted.
to
Sorry,
it.
it's private.
That's a future
It's in a-
documentary.
wait,
It's
wait,
private.
wait,
It's
wait,
private.
It's like for the future documentary.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
it that you guys have such a strong creative partnership? What was it that kept you both working together? What was it that like keeps your creative partnership
For 6
strong?
years, because didn't you question like,
Yeah, like,
is it the
there's
other
so much-
person?
It's gotta be Colin, right?
It must be
So we
Samir.
actually worked together for 12
Clearly, I would be successful.
Yeah, if it was just me, I would totally be killing it right now.
Colin.
We've actually worked together for 12 years. And so we had success together early on. We started a YouTube channel in 2012 that we built for a few years, and then we were able to sell to a media company and then joined that company. And that's where we started working with, the first creators we worked with was Dude Perfect through that company. And so we got to see this world. And I think we were maybe, which I think a lot of creatives and everyone at this table has to be, you have to have an irrational belief in yourself to do this. And we were so unbelievably confident that we had something. We didn't know what it was, but we were just like, there's something when we're working together that's not only like we feel like we have it, but it's also fun. And even when things felt at their height of irrationality, when in that 6 years it was like two guys meeting up to make a YouTube video that no one's gonna watch and that it's not gonna make any money, but we're gonna stay up all night making it. That is an irrational belief in something, and you just can't help it. Like there was times where we'd be like, we gotta stop, right? And then we'd call each other the next morning and have coffee and be like, what about this idea?
It took many years for a lack of viewership and a lack of money to actually affect us.
Yeah.
Wow.
To affect our egos, to affect our confidence.
Yeah.
I think because we were validated by the work we were making, even if it wasn't finding tons of viewership, we'd look at it and be like, yeah, that tour of Portland is the best tour of Portland I didn't know we could make. You know, like that's cool. I didn't know we could do that.
I have to credit a lot of our time with Yes Theory though, because we made a piece called Frozen Alive, which was a documentary about their experience with Wim Hof. And Colin and I led the edit on that with Tommy. And Ammar gave us 6 days, I think, in total to make that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. He was going on a trip.
I wanted it to be 4.
Yeah. he was going on a trip. Well, we came over, we watched some of the footage, and we were like, oh, this is cool footage. And then Ammar was like, cool, Thomas and I are going to Colorado for 6 days, but I've planned a premiere of this movie on the 7th day here at the Yes House. We'll be back then. And we were like, okay. And we just sat together and made this piece that I think that was one of the first times where I felt like, okay, we can really make good stories, unscripted stories on the internet. And like, we were so passionate about it, and we got to experience achieving something that felt impossible. And then having it be so well received online and really being a part of a YouTube video that I think now has 16 million views. Like, that gave us the confidence to be like, okay, there's something. We are capable. And they constantly reflected that back to us of like, you guys can do this. You guys can do it too.
I watched that video with my wife and my two friends at like 11:30 p.m. and we went outside and all ran a mile shirtless. Yeah. And it was cold in Texas at this point. It was the weirdest night of my life. But that's what that video did. So thank all of you.
Good.
That's one of my favorite videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it unlocked a whole new lifeline for Yes Theory, and it actually became more of what we wanted to do more of. You know, today it's continued to be the direction, and so it's.
I would urge any young creator who's trying to find themselves to go work for another creator. You just want to see what it looks like, and you want to feel the collaboration in the room and the success of pressing publish. Like, that is a big deal, to feel like you took part in something like that, and we learned so much from that. On that topic of like validation, right? Like, I feel like as I've come into this career, there's a few things that I'm connected to. One is the process of creating videos. And like you said, Zach, like, I want to make sure we're having fun doing it, because otherwise, what are we doing if we're just stressed out constantly? There's the outcome, of it, the performance outcome. There is the impact that you're having, like you were talking about, Michelle, on others. There's this other part, which is the financial impact, right? And I'm curious for the group to talk about how commercializing your creativity and adding money to the equation has complicated your creative, if that's true or false, that money has complicated your creative process.
I mean, come on. Yeah. I think so. I don't know if you guys agree, but I mean, obviously there's a business side of things, especially when you pay people's salaries and stuff like that. But I definitely find myself, the biggest thing I try to resist is like making that my primary focus, because every time I do, the content starts stinking or just starts being very not creative, like not my best work. And all of a sudden I realize I have to hit the reset button again. I need to drop everything I'm doing to focus on money and get back to the core of it. Because that's really, like you said, it's a nucleus. Like, it's the foundation of what I'm doing and what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't necessarily want to be a businessman and like optimize for the maximum profit. I want to be able to have like wisdom as I'm like stewarding this channel, but I definitely find myself falling into that trap all the time. If you guys have any advice, I'll take it, because that's very common.
I mean, I've sat with you and asked for advice on this before too.
We all need help.
Just did not take Ryan's advice. He was like, "You don't need to take that deal," and I was like,
Yeah.
And we took the deal. Yeah, take it. Go on, we're taking the deal.
He literally took it.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah.
But yeah, I was curious if anyone else has on that, like, that subject of just how the financial side is complicated or not complicated.
Money has complicated it both ways. Even at the times when you're being offered money, it's like that doesn't come. You being offered money, there's a cost for that offer.
Totally.
Right? And things that you have to comply with. Even if it's your, and I bet if we get like a show of hands, like your biggest brand deal is the most complicated.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd probably say
yeah. They're the most, and they choke you out creatively so much, and you just feel by the end of it, you're like, is it fucking worth it? Like, should I have even said yes to this? And we've had a few times where, the deal is so good, but we literally arrived at the conclusion where like, we can never accept the deal from this company again or this agency again, because our editors need like a 2 weeks mental health break after blurring
everything. I remember that.
Yeah. So for us, I know that I value freedom more than anything, and that's ultimately what I buy, either by taking money because that allows me more freedom in my process, or refusing money because that will also allow me more freedom.
I think collectively too, we haven't all really figured out, I mean, some creators do it really well, but how to storytell around a brand integration. How to stop your story and then tell someone about a VPN, which many of us have done.
Are you about to lead into?
I was
Would you like to watch your favorite show?
To watch your favorite show.
Would you like to watch Succession?
Exactly. It is very difficult to bring that into the middle of your story.
I would say Zach is pretty different in this because like the way I'm watching a video and the whole thing is oftentimes like
I'm being entertained.
Yeah, being entertained
Well,
watching.
if the integration is 15 seconds, my videos are only 15 seconds.
Right,
So,
so it's
they're
a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel like MrBeast is really good at those integrations.
He has been.
Yeah, totally. He has gotten really good at that.
He keeps pronouncing my name Trahan. So I told myself I was going to get him back.
Get him.
But Ryan, like after the success of the Penny series last year, which obviously raised a ton of money for a great cause, and it's been such a successful series. I would assume that there were some brands who, when you announced you were doing it this year, would be like, "How can we get involved in that?"
Yeah.
How do you know what to say yes to, no to? Do you have a framework for that? Specifically around the Penny series, was that something you were really adamant about?
Yeah, I was very adamant about not having brand deals. And even with the 30-day series, like we had, biggest offers I've ever gotten, I feel like. And it's crazy how you're so right. As soon as you start selling something to your audience, there's a cost. There's a clear motivation shift from the Penny series just being this like inspiring, wholesome, optimistic, like let's do whatever we could possibly do with one penny, and trying to inspire people truly. Like as soon as they see that you sort of like profited off of it blatantly, it immediately removes that like passion and that love and the fire for it. And yeah, I think AdSense is such a cool monetization sort of form for that reason, because there's really not a transaction that is abundantly clear. Like obviously Google takes care of all of that. So I think that's why I feel so strange trying to sell things. And I think it's for that reason. It's like there's a true cost there. And if in a perfect world I would just take AdSense. But obviously you have great opportunities, and some of the brands are actually really great to work with. I found like a couple brands that I just love working with that feel super true to me. And that kind of feels like the best form of what it looks like to have a partnership with a brand. But with the Penny series, that felt like kind of the sacred thing, especially from the mission. Like you guys know, like whenever you have videos that have like a super sacred mission, it's like, I can't slap a brand on that, So that's how I felt about it, and I'm glad I did it. I didn't take a brand deal on either. So
and on the AdSense, there's probably a dramatic difference between 30 days and 7 days. Was there any reason behind shortening it to 7 days?
Yeah, just
mental
health, this time with my wife, just humanity. It's crazy how like those 30 days absolutely were life altering. Like it takes 21 days to develop a habit. And when I got home, I was literally eating McDonald's breakfast, unironically, like off camera. Like Haley took a picture of me in the living room, and I still had my beard and stuff. And I was just like, she took it from the top of the staircase, so she kind of like zoomed in. I just looked like the most decrepit dude in the world. But it's crazy. It was life altering, like in many ways. I didn't know how to get back into a creative routine.
Wow.
I didn't like even my habits in real life. I was just like, what do I do? Like, should I walk Spock right now? Should I go for a walk? I don't know. It was life altering. And so 7 days felt like what we could muster up this year just as a team. Because one of my guys on my team, Preston, he has a baby. Like he has a kid. Right. And also considering their mental health and their sort of energy and what they're capable of doing, it's like we did something awesome, and it's okay to not top that this year. And also that's why we're sort of like stopping this series altogether. We feel like we kind of had our culmination last year with the 30 days. Let's try to do something different in a different creative lane. So yeah.
Zach, we heard you say that there's some formats that you can't experiment with now that your channel is so big.
I can't. I think when I say that, I mean that there's a point, I don't know if you guys have had this, when your channel number, subscriber, viewer count gets so big that you feel like it's kind of known for that thing, and putting out something different is you just know it's not gonna be receptive by the audience. I actually love starting a channel like over at 0. That's like my favorite thing to do. Just to see like, cause you can try something else. We're starting a new channel tomorrow on YouTube.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
And I'm not gonna tell you the link to it just cause I wanna like do my own thing. And
Is it branded Zach King?
ish.
Okay.
So it's just, you know, because I'm curious about that topic of more just filmmaking and having a place that my main channel now, like, sure, there's some filmmakers, but if I make a full dedicated filmmaking thing, it's not going to translate to the people who are just wanting to see magic. They're like, wait, this is edited? Why are we talking about the tutorial? You know, like, so it's just like finding, and I think where YouTube, if I were to answer that question, where it is now, it's about like, the channel represents a certain community, and switching that up drastically is just kind of difficult to do, or maybe impossible, versus just starting a new one and building that community from the ground up. Because I think my channels over the years have been such a weird mix of like a mainstream audience coming from all the other socials, TikTok or wherever, want to see more of it, of what they've already seen somewhere else. So now I love, again, starting over at 0. So that's what I'm going to do again.
Are you going to start with short form content and long form content, or how do you like jumpstart a new channel right now?
Long form.
Long form.
Yeah. I actually am not going to do much short form on it just because I have my own hypothesis about that currently, but.
Hypothesis.
Oh, wow.
How do you say
What's the
hypothesis?
hypothesis?
Hypothesis.
That's a plural.
Well, I only have one hypothesis.
That felt cryptic.
Well, I don't know if you guys, so like our channel gets 1 million subscribers every month from only short form, the shorts.
Yeah.
Wow. And I feel like it dilutes the number, like none of those are converting to long form. And it's actually like, now our long form doesn't even do well. It's become a shorts channel.
Yeah.
Where I almost want to start a brand new channel just for the long form again, not ever post a short there.
You have Zach King shorts, you make Zach King
King long form.
Yeah, long form.
Zach King longs.
Zach King, not shorts.
Think about that. I feel like I have this conversation with other YouTubers. It's like if the subscriber count wasn't there, would you care? Or what are your thoughts? Like when you see the long form viewership, I feel like I'm trying to give this advice to my friend who does a lot of shorts, but looking at the long form viewership as something like, that's a rolling average viewership. As long as that's going up, it's like, okay, things are going well. Because the shorts inflating the subscribers, it is kind of demotivating to see that big number and you're like, I'm not living up to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you just feel a little defeated if you see?
Not defeated in the ratio or anything. It's more that ever since posting shorts or since it's really blown up, the views on all the long form have dropped dramatically. Like I don't know if it's a conversion thing or if they totally are separate on the back end, where shorts just get fed to the shorts audience. But I would think there would be some sort of crossover.
I also think they're like artificially changed. The motivation for someone to click subscribe on YouTube, it used to be something for a very long time, and now, and that thing used to be like, I watch something, I'm not sure about this guy. Maybe I watch another video. I like them, and I'm like, okay, let me press subscribe. But now I'm like, oh yeah, 10 seconds. That was entertaining. Let me click subscribe. That's such a different behavior from what a subscribe traditionally meant. Right. And I think that's why we're seeing all these like erratic metrics that are not really are not consistent with this hypothesis that another hypothesis.
Dude, so many.
We're gonna have
I can't.
We'll have a count.
Exactly. That you know, shorts are gonna bring views and subscribers to your channel, because ultimately I think a subscriber coming from shorts is a very different definition of a subscriber than someone who's coming in through the traditional YouTube, how we've, you know.
Subscribe on shorts is almost like the like button.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, solid.
Yeah.
You're totally right.
And I feel like as an audience member, it doesn't really impact what I'm watching. Like my subscriptions.
Right.
You know,
not anymore.
Yeah, I know what I want to search for and watch, and you know, if it's on my home screen, I'll check it out. But there's no like, I'm not looking at my subscription feed.
Since you guys are in bed with YouTube, you're gonna keep me saying that.
Accusatory. Wait.
Sorry. No, like you guys are pretty aware of what YouTube is working on and things that they're rolling out. Is there something that they are currently working on?
This industry plan.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Everybody knows, man. No, like
The 6 years was a hoax.
It's just a story.
Cover up.
Exactly. Is there something that YouTube is working on rolling out right now that you guys think is going to be a game
From my
changer?
experience as a high-paid YouTube executive,
No, but like nothing.
Not
anything you
particularly.
can say?
I think multi-language audio is one of the most interesting things.
Yeah.
But even in our attempts at doing multi-language audio, there's a lot of complications.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
For me, as someone who there's another language spoken in my house, like I can hear another language and recognize that there might be some cultural nuances to adding another language that, I think it can increase our audience to add multiple language tracks. But, we did a Spanish dub and we played it for a Spanish speaking group. And they were like, that is a mix of Spanish from Mexico and Spain.
Dang.
That is not one
I see.
type of Spanish.
That's
We just
weird.
mixed it all together.
see,
That doesn't
I see.
feel good to listen to. And we were like, oh.
Dang.
So this is a lot more complicated. So I would just say that's the feature that I think has the biggest opportunity. Like imagine Yes Theory in, Arabic and all these different languages that you get to. There's something emotional too for me of having our content available in Hindi.
Hindi,
Like
of
that
course,
to me is really cool.
Yeah.
So,
What about your most controversial opinion in the space right now?
Oh,
Yeah.
these guys are controversial.
Turn this around.
That's what I like about them.
You guys have turned the round table.
Because I actually really enjoy. Like, I don't know if you guys are always in the seat of asking the questions and trying to understand
Yeah.
more about other creator stories, but like, I think you guys have such a unique story, especially with this most recent chapter of like, shutting down the shop and like you moving away and then coming back to this, like, coming back during a time where I actually can't really picture the space without you. And I'm not saying that because I'm your friend. I'm like, you guys are such a big source of knowledge and wisdom and best practices in the space that I think I would love for more people to know your story, because first, it's extremely inspirational, but two, will actually increase your credibility with people because you're not speaking out of your asses, just being
Sure.
like, we know about creators, like creator
yeah.
economy. You've been in the space since, for over a decade. So yeah, that's why we're turning it around.
So controversial.
Ryan's like, whatever, Mark.
A good title though.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's a good hook.
all our
Controversial.
A controversial conversation. I find it very hard to find something controversial, but something that I just thought of, like as we're talking about shorts, there's a statistic that I've followed over the years from YouTube, which is that watch time has gone up on connected TVs.
Yeah.
And so as much as people are like watching on mobile and watching on short form, I really do believe that there are more and more people who are now sitting on their sofa and having like a lean back experience on YouTube and saying, I'm willing, like I'm bought in from the start. I'm willing to, Michelle, when you make a boxing doc that's 40 plus minutes and the first 2 minutes are credits, which is like not something that you would recommend someone do on YouTube, but I think we're moving towards viewers who are like, yeah, I'm bought in, I'm sitting back, it's on my TV, I'm gonna watch.
34% of Yes Theory viewers right now are TV watch.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is
Pretty
I mean, I watched the cat video and the Lebanon video on my TV.
I would never watch a
Yeah,
Yes Theory
yeah.
video on my phone.
yeah,
I couldn't do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have another controversial opinion.
Please.
Okay.
Love
Are we in the deep end?
So,
Yeah, go for it.
I think there's been this promise over the past couple of years of this term, the creator economy, and I think largely like we got connected to that term and talked about it a lot. But I think that maybe there's a misconception that it is A, bigger than it is, and B, that there is like a broad middle class of creators. I actually think the gap between the top 1% of creators and the next group is widening at a dramatic pace. I think the investment into the content, the artistry, the amount of time people have been doing this, like to compete at the level that I think the top creators are competing is exceptionally hard.
Yeah.
And I think that we say a lot of times like it truly has never been a better time to be a creator, but to be as successful as the top 1% and to actually be in this conversation, I think is really challenging.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a lot of like VC money that came into like, let's build stuff for the creator economy. The creator economy is a bunch of entrepreneurs who make media, and actually there's like 50 of them who do it really well. You know, and I think that is the misconception that
Is it really a bunch of entrepreneurs that make media, or was it a bunch of people that wanted to make videos and then all of a sudden the direction of an entire like trend in the economy?
That's probably
was
true.
like,
It's more-
you're
yeah,
entrepreneurs,
that's true.
take
That's
our
true.
money, make something.
Maybe
with it.
I'm so trained to be like, we're all entrepreneurs. But yeah, I think it is, you're right. It was like everyone here, whether or not you've been doing it independently, for a while, like has been making videos for a really long time. And that's the crop right now. That is the conversation that we consider the creator economy.
Right. That's why I think it's remarkable what Colin said, that when you guys were getting started, you were happy with just a vlog being a solid tour of Portland.
Right.
Like, I feel like we don't exist in a landscape like that anymore, where people are happy with just, maybe they're starting a new channel and they have 30 views, and they're not just happy with it. Like, it almost feels like people have so much pressure to succeed. Like, there's no point of uploading YouTube videos if you're not going to be a YouTuber.
Totally. It means too much now.
That's why zero is so fun, because you can kind of reinvent the wheel. It's fresh. You can do anything. Like, I'm kind of jealous of everyone that has 30 followers while they're looking at like, I want to have 1 million. But it's like, no, you're in the time where you could throw, paint on the wall and see what is interesting to you.
For sure.
I think one question then is natural here, which is why try for the number of subscribers that you have, the amount of success that people at this table have? Like, what is the point of that goal then? And I think for me, like, even the difference of being at a media company versus being independent, like, now when I want, when the show is becoming more successful and when I am controlling the distribution of money made from that show, when I want a 3D animation of like a Formula One car, I can go find a person that's amazing at making 3D animations and hire them to make the thing that I had in my head. Like, it's an incredible privilege to be able to have that creative freedom that comes with knowing an audience is going to be there, and then the money that having an audience gets you unlocks a certain amount of creative pressure for sure, and also like creative optionality. And one of the things that I really admire is people who take that optionality and focus on the storytelling as opposed to the natural progression of improving quality on traditional TV is typically improving production quality. But like, Ryan, I was watching a video of yours, the Loneliest Job video.
Oh yeah.
And there's this amazing animation where you like injure yourself in the night at one point.
That hurt.
And he's like made this animation where he's a bobblehead and he's just clearly like dragging it up the
Photoshop.
and then like down or something, and he's just screen recording Photoshop. It's so much funnier and more human than it would be if you hired someone to make like a beautiful thing of that. And that is, in my opinion, like better than a bunch of things that you could have spent more money on. So it's not about like spending more money on your thing. It's about having the freedom to choose how you take the idea that's inside your head and make it in other people's heads. Like that's an incredible process.
And I think that's usually the biggest disconnect, that when the VCs come in or the other streamers or production companies, like I'm sure you've had this exact pitch where it's like, Ryan, we're gonna do the Penny series, we're gonna make it 60 days and we're gonna get like 5 cameras shoot and we're gonna have you do your thing, and then we're gonna edit it, it's gonna be like amazing, we're gonna do better graphics or whatever, and then you're like, well, that's not really, then, I mean, it's gone.
Yeah, one brand deal I got, they wanted to have a producer on set. They're like, so what's your set situation normally like? I'm like, it's just me. I was just gonna go. So I just don't want to awkwardly stand next to a producer the whole time. So that's totally a thing where I think there's a little misconception of how actually amateur some things can be. But yeah, that's totally like the creative liberty I want. And I feel like quality totally is the goal of this content, making someone else happier and making them enjoy it. How can I do that to the best of my ability? So
I mean, I thought it was interesting at Vid Summit, you shared stats of the Beast production costs versus your production costs. And that if
MrBeast.
and that the view, if I remember right, the stats were that you actually got the same, if not more amount of views on the.
Oh yeah, probably like a similar video. Oh, it was a Penny series because I made 30 videos.
Right.
It took me 30 to match a similar viewership, but it was a Squid Game video.
Right.
And the Squid Game video cost like what, $3.5 million or something? Penny series cost, I mean, we had to rent a van for Zach and Preston, but it was very cheap. I mean, it's crazy to think about.
How much did it cost?
Probably $6,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we were very lean, but it's so cool to think like, what are my strengths?
Yeah.
How can I fight MrBeast in terms of being competitive with him? No one can do it. But thinking about what are my biggest strengths? How can I be creative? And sometimes I think frequency is another way to do that. Because so few YouTubers post often. It's so hard to do. But I remember back in the day, I was posting like 3 times a week and it felt easy. So things are different.
You're also very lean with your setup? Like I remember when we hung out in Austin one time, you had just come back from the loneliest job shoot.
Yep.
And you finished the edit on the airplane ride back.
Yeah, before we landed, the video's done.
Before he landed, it was done.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
It was so funny. There were 2 kids that were from Serbia. We were like in the very back of the plane, and it was Preston, me, Zach, and the 2 Serbian kids, and we were editing the videos the whole time. And they watched the videos, and they loved the channel. And we let them watch the video before it was posted.
Whoa,
like,
they're
before
never
we
gonna
landed.
forget that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I feel
I
like
love
Ryan
that.
has the best version of YouTube.
Agreed.
Yeah.
If there's any YouTuber
Yeah.
that I could be, I said this in our conversation with Jimmy. I said if there's any YouTuber I could be, it would be Ryan. Trahan.
Ryan,
Yeah.
He's
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way, or is there anything that you're like, yeah, that's right, but I'm trying to change this?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm very grateful. I feel like I'm very happy with everything's at right now. Definitely failed a lot of times to get to this sort of situation, but I think it's kind of come to this version of contentment I think I've found in sort of not needing to be the biggest YouTuber in the world and sort of not needing to be the best CEO or boss, making all the best business moves, and just finding what feels good. And I think it's been a long process to get here, but I'm very grateful y'all say that.
And I think people feel it. Like, this is our first time meeting, but I've known through Thomas and your guys' conversations. Like, it's just very clear that what people have responded to in your career as a YouTuber is this contentment, is you being able to arrive at the point where you're like, this is exactly what I want to do and the life I want to have. I'm going to crack exactly the jokes that I want, and do a screen recording off of Photoshop. Like, it's that energy that people connect with, and I think I'm very inspired by it. So as I said, first time meeting, and I could just feel it through your entire aura and like smile. That's ultimately, I think, why people care about you and love you, and so just.
I think you're reintroducing at least what I fell in love with YouTube. Like I fell in love with YouTube during an era where people were vlogging and it was very toned down. And Casey Neistat era was like so incredible to watch his daily life and see him turn, menial tasks into stories.
Yeah.
And I feel like you've reintroduced that to us, which is really special.
I feel like there is a temptation with. I look at my channel sometimes and I'm like, how are these getting this many views? Because it feels like I'm seeing way more impressive content that I'm enjoying so much. But I also have a hunger for that more amateur content. And so I'm trying to just see if that is, just like you, sort of like your hypothesis, how many is that? 12? 12 hypotheses? But just trying to see if it's like, if it's matched, and I think it has been, because I've had some videos that I feel like I didn't try that hard on, but I was like trying to think of how to make them funny and creative, and they'd get more views than the videos I'm like doing crazy logistics for.
Right.
So
I think about that with us, this idea of like authentic amateurism and how important it is to hold on to. And we used to film in my car because it was just like the most controlled set that we had at the time, where it was like we knew there would be
best sound too.
best sound,
really good
best
sound
light coming through.
Yeah.
And our audience like loved it. Like in the comments, once we moved away from it, they were like,
Sellouts.
And I look at that, I told people through our studio and our set, and like we've got lights like this, and it looks really professional and it's cool, and I love it. But I also know there's this element of like, oh well, actually anyone with the right amount of money could kind of have this set, and there's something so important, I think, about holding on to that authentic amateurism that I think everyone here does do in a way where you like capture that excitement still.
One thing I was thinking about when you were talking, we were all talking about the impact of money. And when more money typically means more production value. I think for us what's been interesting is, the cameras are nice and there are people on set and stuff, but for us, like every dollar has to go towards story. Sometimes story does mean a better camera because we can capture a moment like at the boxing event in super slow motion, and that improves the story of the intensity of that moment you would have missed if it was 24 frames. But sometimes it means we're gonna have a really small crew on this set because we're working with people. We know that if we have only 2 people there, they're going to be way more honest with us and comfortable on camera in a way. And I'm sure you guys experienced this on Yes Theory too, that sometimes the smaller gets you a story that traditional or higher budget would never get, because they're going to bring 40 people in a room and then expect who Ryan Trahan referred to as normal people earlier today.
that's so out of context, guys, I promise.
They're going to freeze up in those situations. People who aren't accustomed to what we do are going to be uncomfortable. And so our ways of getting better story is sometimes only available on YouTube. And I think you do that a lot. Everybody here does that really well.
I was going to ask you about the boxing documentary because I texted you right when I watched it. I watched it right when it came out. I loved it.
I screamed when you texted me about it.
And but you replied to me with like other thumbnail options.
I did,
because you said it wasn't performing.
Well, here's the thing. The boxing video was definitely an experiment for Challenge Accepted. It was a different length. I mean, the story was so long, but also it was, in my opinion, the shortest it could be before it became not good, honestly. I mean, the story was, in my opinion, excellent at that length, and it was the shortest it could be. Now, obviously, with a longer YouTube video, similar to you guys, if you release it, it takes some time for people to want to carve out time in their day to sit back and lean back, and sure enough, it did eventually.
Yeah.
I did change the thumbnail, but
That's okay.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Was it one of those videos, I don't know if you guys have them, where you publish it and you're like, I don't really care how well it does? Because you knew you enjoyed the video?
I think all of us can say that, but does anyone actually mean that? I think everybody, you wouldn't be successful if you didn't care in some capacity how it did. And I knew also personally that because of the length, because of how many people knew we were working on it, if it was a total flop, it would have been a failed hypothesis on YouTube that I wanted to prove wrong. We can have long content, we can rival television, and we can make quality that competes at all of these award shows and stuff. And for me, I needed it to be a win. So even though we took some liberties, they're very strategic. Even in the beginning with the credit sequence, we show the credits after a crazy cold open.
Right.
And the credit sequence is paired in tandem with that to almost agitate and confuse the viewer in a way like, oh, whoa, I'm not used to this on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it only works in this situation because nobody else is doing it. It is different. Every other TV show has a title sequence.
Yeah.
But for us, it was unique and therefore, ironically, a quite good part of retention for the video because everyone realized, oh my God, like this is not what I thought it was going to be. It's not just your average YouTuber trying to box situation. This is different.
I loved it. I thought the credit sequence, I mean, I'm like a fan of films, and it reminded me that I went to film school and I make content on YouTube, but it doesn't mean I can't do what I was into over here. And and that used to not really connect for me, right? Of like, okay, this is something different. Maybe one day I'll do something like that. But watching you do that, I was like, wait, we can do that.
Yeah.
And even with you, it's Stranded, right? Like, you're making movies. And I think that's, to me, like this childhood dream of getting to make movies is like more real than ever because we just get to do it in our own theater, right?
It's so good.
Absolutely. And I think that is always why what we're doing on these platforms, in my opinion, at this point in time, is going to be more attractive to me than any of the other ways we can create content because we have that privilege.
How do you, we asked this question to Zach earlier about ideas. Like with Challenge Accepted, the boxing doc, I mean, you trained for what, a year plus to box, right? So you're filming that episode over a year's time, right? And I know right now you're in production on a few episodes. Like, do you know before you greenlight that process that it's going to perform? How connected are you to like, ooh, that idea is going to do well?
Oh my God.
Or are you just
Or
are you just like, I want to do that, so I'm willing to invest in it even if it doesn't?
So you're thinking like one for the studio, one for me.
Is that what it's like for you? Or
it used to be that way. So in the beginning, I would do 3 videos a month that I was like, I think these are gonna bang. And then the last one was like, this one's just fun for me. And what's funny is I got to this point where the ones just for me started performing better than the ones I thought were like automatic million view videos or whatever. And so I decided I'm just going to only do this, I guess, now. And that's what Challenge Accepted became. We don't know, but we also like have kind of a long vetting process for green lighting. When Ryan told us about the think tank, we started doing a think tank.
Let's go.
Yeah, so we have a think tank. We're meeting next Wednesday, so I look forward to their ideas. And then we also like often text a bunch of other YouTubers and kind of get their feedback there. Because at this point, kind of like you were talking about risk assessing each piece of content you invest in, our videos take anywhere from like 3 to 12 months to make.
Yeah.
So we don't want to go down a path that we think is going to lead to failure just because it's fun. Fortunately, at this point, I love making Challenge Accepted so much. I mean, that is my dream job. So anything we would make in that capacity would be fun for me. But we want to vet and make sure that everything we do is going to be successful. However, an example of something I thought was going to totally tank was the Butler Academy video that we did. We shot it last summer, and it sat on a hard drive for like 9 months because we were like, this is just a 10 out of 10 video. We're just like, leave it there. Yeah, and prioritize everything else. We did it because we just got access to it and thought it was really cool, and it was like Garrett's passion project. So that is an example of passion. And then we tried going through a few different editors and nobody could figure it out. Because it was like 4 hours of learning how to place a fork and a knife and pour tea, and how do you make that engaging on YouTube? And our editor, Ryan Gonzalez, who we found earlier this spring, somehow made it work, and it did really, really well. It beat the Secret Service video, which actually makes no sense to me.
Right.
Like physically speaking, makes no sense to me, but I think it was very humbling and exciting that, I'm not always right, and we don't know. You can have the best YouTubers in the room betting on videos, and everyone can be wrong, and that's really exciting. And again, in the traditional sense, if all of those YouTubers were executives, it would have never made.
This, I think, is the most important part of it. Like, the idea that we can be wrong, and that if you spread yourself into like the sort of nooks and crannies of your own passions, like there will be other people also there, didn't exist in the way that greenlighting other shows used to be structured, because like there had to be like 8 people who also agreed it was going to be a banger. And then it got to move forward, and then there were like 8 more people every step of the way. Like the experimentation never would have happened.
Right. And then I also think like with even if you have the privilege of getting to make a show elsewhere, they might not market it. There might not be any information about the show anywhere. I mean, Netflix releases hundreds of shows a year, and we don't even know. We only hear about Stranger Things and Wednesday, I guess, and the 3 other things that you hear about. But so many things just fall through the cracks, and at least we have the benefit of the algorithm, ironically, in this way, that can make things float to the top that you would have never expected.
What about you, Ryan? When you look at, you showed us that thumbnail for the 1-star Yelp reviews. You look at that. Do you know how well that's going to perform? Because like we talked about your metaverse video on the way here. That's 40 million views.
That's crazy.
Like some of your videos are really pushing into the tens of millions of views now. Like how well do you feel like when you look at a thumbnail?
Yeah. Sheesh. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think it's exciting to not be able to fully predict. But the thing is, you just try to learn a little bit each time you post. Right. And basically I almost said it again. I'm not going to say the word.
Don't say it.
Our theory.
That's the first theory.
Right now, yes. Yeah. Theory is we've seen videos do well recently that are much more like lo-fi, and the concept itself is also kind of like underwhelming. The one I'm referring to that's done really well recently there's 2. I tried public sleep pods, and then I asked 100 drive-thrus for banned items. Both very accessible to people, both very cheap to film. Those videos, I think, have like 13 and 14 million views, and they're some of our newest. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm like, okay, how can I do some more ideas that feel pretty underwhelming? I'm sorry, I don't get it.
I have to go.
But
a mammoth from Siberia. I have to find one in the permafrost. No.
But all that to say, like these were affirmed, and I have some other ideas that I feel like I went to Japan, I went to the world's oldest hotel. I was like, oh, this is going to be our best performing video. And it was one of our lowest performing videos. And so I'm
because
kind
you
of like-
tried.
Yeah, because I tried. So I'm just gonna not try. And it's very strange. So I'm like, okay, let's try to do some more fun, underwhelming ideas that I feel like my uncle could do.
This is not normal.
That's so good.
Yeah, this is not how my videos perform.
But I want to make them better. Like with these new videos, what I realized is the underwhelming ideas really stink if you don't end them in a way that's at least euphoric or like awesome. So my favorite video in this sort of vein, it's like I invited 100 celebrities to my birthday. None of them came. But we have this birthday party at the end, and it's like this musical sequence. I'm dancing with my friends, and it feels like, dude, we did it. Like, what did we do? We didn't succeed, but we succeeded. And so that's what I'm trying to bring into these new ones, kind of like a metaverse video-esque ending into these underwhelming concepts to leave them, happy.
And that's you investing in story though. Like with your
totally.
think tank, with the thumbnail, all of it, and like even critically thinking of, even if we fail, what's the story point ending?
Right.
Which is clearly more valuable than the quality of the camera.
Totally.
It's interesting
yeah.
you have to think about that, especially in producing unscripted content. I wanted to ask a question for Cleo and Michelle. Our industry is very predominantly male, specifically on YouTube. You go to any creator event, and it feels like it's more male-centric than maybe ever right now on YouTube. Do you agree with that it potentially is, like, why do you think that is, and do you think it's hard for female creators to break through on YouTube right now?
It's a great question.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I mean, I think historically YouTube is very interesting when it comes to, for lack of a better word, gender and the dichotomy of it, again. And historically, like, I think of, like, I was watching Liza Koshy and Lily Singh, and so many fantastic female creators have left to do other things. And I think that all I can do is make the best content I can and hope that the audience enjoys it, and hope that in that process, other people who look like me or maybe feel alone in the process are inspired to go out and do that same thing. As far as why other people aren't here, or other women, I'm not quite sure. And it's something I've also been thinking about is it the nature of the algorithm that rewards more intense content that and maybe I fall in that because I'm doing traditionally more masculine things sometimes. I'm not sure. And I think it's a really layered and difficult thing to pinpoint, but I'm happy to be here. And I just hope that me being here, Cleo being here, and that other people creating a welcoming space for people like us encourages more women to be a part of this and to find an inner entrepreneur within themselves to start a channel. Someone I've really admired a lot lately is Kariza, Life of Riza.
Oh, she's so good.
She's fantastic.
She's so good.
She's someone I want more people to know about. And I think it's on all of us to uplift those smaller channels and voices, regardless of their background, if we believe in what they're doing.
I love that.
I completely agree with all of that. The additional layer that I think is important is also audience dynamics with respect to gender. Most creators that make content that falls generally within the educator bucket that I have spoken with have predominantly male audiences. And I'm not talking like 51-49. I'm talking like 90% male audiences. And that dynamic also, I think, I don't know how to solve for, because one of the things that is really important to me is, like, if one of the main purposes of Huge If True is to say, this is an amazing future that we could have with this technology, can we help make this happen? Who's watching makes a big difference.
Totally, yeah.
And so that's one of the problems that I think about a lot, and I really don't, I continue to struggle with right now, because I don't know how I could change what I'm doing to help solve that.
I was just going to speak on, just like my wife Haley Pham, she's a creator too. And it's really interesting with some of her videos, because the ones that kind of disproportionately perform have a bigger male audience. It's something we talk about. She's like, there's all these dudes commenting on my video. And it's so funny to think about like that conversation. It's like, why is that? But also I think about, you know, like that creator middle class that you guys talk about sometimes. Like whenever I walk into the living room or something, she's always watching a booktuber who has like 10,000 subscribers, and she's like obsessed with them. And so I think there are a lot of creators that I just personally see her watch that are like smaller female creators that really are making great content. But yeah, it's not hitting like the mainstream type of viewership you'd hope.
Yeah.
But it's kind of encouraging to see because I feel like I see a new one every week.
I think on that subject, and even on what you talked about with Life of Rizza, who's incredible, her and her boyfriend Colt, actually, I think Colt Kerwin is like one of the greatest creators right now. But I wanted to ask this question: was there something that anyone here has watched on YouTube recently that after you watched the video you were like, damn, I wish I made that, or something as good as that? Because there's something a channel that you are creatively jealous of, or
Boxing video.
Boxing video, yeah.
That is iconic. That's an iconic video from this year.
Yeah,
totally.
Agreed.
I wish I could look up my watch list right now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Dodford for me.
Dodford's a great
I think
creator.
Dodford is just doing something. He's elevating the video essay genre and doing it wholly himself, like making it his own thing. And I admire the attention to detail that he brings to everything he does.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. I would say the Yes Theory Cab video.
Oh my God, yes.
That for me was a moment where I not only felt creatively jealous of the actual product, but I felt jealous of the experience.
Dang.
Where I was like, something Colin says to me about YouTube often is that it's our ticket to the extraordinary. That by uploading YouTube videos, we get to go have extraordinary experiences, right? Like this is a moment for us that's like,
100%.
This is crazy. We get to have this conversation. This is what we get to do on our day to day. That was something I watched where I was like, I can't believe you had that experience.
I can't believe that.
You know, like there's some Yes Theory experiences where I'm like, not only are you guys being creative, but you're living an extraordinary life, and those two things are, I don't know.
Which by the way, for us, like in very dry terms, it's the success of a video is only gonna come when it's so connected to the experience being one that is so that you can wish for. That one that when you watch, you're like, oh, I wish I was there. So it's like it's weird. Like a big part of like we can do everything creatively right in a video and get all the angles and have all the coverage, but if that energy is missed, the rest doesn't really matter.
Right.
So it just worked out for this time that we had, you know, the authenticity of the experience being one that was just so, it was like one of the greatest experiences of our lives, and one that translated to people watching as also being, you know, like one of their top videos or favorite videos that Yes Theory has put out.
I think visually seeing the impact too. You know, I don't know if you guys have seen this video, but they essentially hire a cab in London and say, we're going to pay you 10 grand and just see how far the meter takes us.
Yeah.
And where do you end up?
We end up in Tangier, Morocco.
Morocco, yeah. And the cab driver is this unbelievable character whose life is changed by this.
Yeah.
And when you fly his son out, and they've never traveled together.
Yeah.
It's this unbelievably emotional moment that happened in real life. And
we just got to
and you got to be a part
this.
of it.
Yeah.
The moment that you tell him that he's going to be staying in a castle, that you got him his own castle, and he starts crying.
Yeah.
Because he's never really been treated like that.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there watching it on my TV and I'm starting to cry.
Right.
And for me, that is such an indicator of a really good story. And there was a period of time where I felt like, man, YouTube videos don't make me cry. Like American Idol, I watch it and I'm in tears all the time. Like, how do they do it? Or like Queer Eye, I watch it and I'm like, I'm crying. It's just like TV screamers. But I'm always looking out for creators who are telling stories that I connect with on a level where I actually start to connect so much that I could tear up.
Yeah.
And I think that's an emotional intelligence in your storytelling. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
We were always like, our perspective on this is always like, what an amazing opportunity that we've got to to evoke emotion and to actually be using all these tools at our hand, whether it's like just editing overall or like the music that you use in editing or how you capture something to, you know, in such a fast-paced, like, you know, very consumerist culture where people are just like, they're just rushing to consume the next thing. How can you just give them a moment where they just connect with the fact that they're humans and they can feel things and they can watch, and out of empathy you can actually cry because you're watching someone be so touched by something, and then you end up just think like our mission in Yes Theory is to elevate the human experience, whether it's through stories or the experiences or the spaces. So yeah, like our metric of success, like when you finish watching a Yes Theory video, did you finish feeling more connected to your humanity and to this beautiful life that we've got on this planet and the people on it? And this video just hit so many boxes, and it brought, you know, this like nostalgic feel for Yes Theory when we're all there, we're all doing the thing together. So there was a lot of boxes that were checked, and I think overall, outside of it wasn't really an intentional thing of like, oh, let's make sure that Matt is back for this one, check, or it was just like the energy of it ended up bringing this wonderful experience, which ended up bringing the performance as a byproduct.
I like when you say there's some boxes that are checked.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of creators have different types of boxes. Are there any boxes that you have to check that come to mind for any of you that you think might be very specific to me and who I am as a creator?
I don't know if this meets that last criteria. But for me, every video comes from a good key visual. And the way that I figure out because not every story is a good video story in my format. And the way that I tell if something is a good visual is if you and I are having coffee and we're talking about something interesting. The moment when I have to like pull out a napkin and draw a little diagram or show you a clip on my phone and like play it and then pause it and say like, okay, you see how the statue fell like that way? Like what that means is that, and like play it again. That's a key visual. You wouldn't understand the thing without the visual. An example of this is I did a video on artificial wombs. And the visual that we come back to over and over again is a timeline of gestation. That for me is the sine qua non. Like there will be no video if there's not a good key visual, because a good story could be an amazing long form New Yorker piece, but I don't write long form. I make videos.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's really good. Do you feel like that, Zach? Like with your videos, I mean, obviously they're key visuals, like it's the whole thing. But are you like certain that like the illusion has to be a certain way, or that the emotion that you're evoking has to come across in a certain way?
One of our check boxes that we try to ask is this going to make sense and be viewable in 10 or 20 years? It's kind of like just checking the evergreenness of it. Just because we've over the years made videos that whether it hits on a trend, you look back at those even 5-10 years later and you're like, I'll ask my team, like, what was this? Why did we make this? What is this about? There's a few that are like cultural moments, whether it's the ice bucket challenge or maybe the last grimace shake kind of trend that happened. But like even that one, in a couple of years, I'm gonna be like, why is there purple goo everywhere? Like I don't get it. And so like we try to ask the question when possible, like, will this make sense? And that usually just guides us storytelling wise. Is this a relatable, human experience? Is it something that, waiting in a line, guaranteed, no matter what technology is done for us in the future, like we're gonna have a version of a line for many, many years. Trying to get through security at the airport, that's still not gonna probably go away. So like hitting on those emotional and story points for us that are just part of life, and also like universally, that's in every country. You're gonna have to go through some version of security. You're gonna have to wait in a line. You're gonna have to whatever. And those are that's a general cue of like, it's probably a good story. Now we just need to match a really good trick with that, and then probably our formation of a checklist for a banger.
It's amazing that banger has become adopted.
Where did
terminology.
That's MrBeast for
Is that
sure.
MrBeast or is that Mark Rober? Like someone started that and it just
That's where I heard it from.
it
MrBeast.
just took control.
Yes.
Beast. Sorry. Apologies.
So, I think in talking to all of you guys, like I think it's no surprise why everyone is up for a nomination. We have 2, again, Creator of the Year noms. right here. We have Cleo in her first year of being a creator getting nominated.
That's crazy.
It's a really awesome time. And one question that we wanted to ask all of you as our final question is, what is the impact that you want to leave on the next generation of creators? Like, what do you hope people? What's the legacy of your channel, your creative, your art that you leave on the platform?
Dang.
I just want to encourage people to get out and make stuff. And if they hit publish, that's on them too. Like, I don't think you have to hit publish, and I don't think there has to be a pressure of you have to, be a creator to be making stuff either. But I always feel like it's such a shame when people have all these fears that stop them from creating, when really, like, we're in an age when the production value, it's pretty crazy what you can buy with $1,000 DSLR. Like, you can go make stuff on your phone. And and I just love seeing, even as I have young kids now, as they're taking my phone and going and film their own little movies in the backyard, it's like seeing their imaginations come alive through that, and being a real life experience that they have is like, that's so cool. And so I just hope people get out and make stuff. It's fun, and I think that's what I love about all of you, is that your processes, I know they're all difficult, but like, you all enjoy what you're making, and if people can find that, there's so much freedom in that. Like, that goes back to your first question of like, have we made it? I feel like if you're going to your job where you can do that every day, like, yeah, you've probably made it.
That's so good. Yeah, I feel like I actually I relate to you a lot, Cleo, in the idea that I've had a crazy path of creating content where at first it was about running videos, but then I started making commentary videos, and they're actually mostly negative and cynical, and actually just really far off from my personality, but that's what I was doing well on YouTube, and that's what I was watching, and I thought that's what I had to do to be successful. It's crazy because it was successful. It like blew up. That's how I really got to start on YouTube. But eventually I was sitting in my office and I was gonna go write a script about someone, and I just felt so off, and I was like, this can't be it. Similar to how you feel, like there has to be another way. And that was like 3 years ago, but since then, I've basically made it a mission to make overly positive, wholesome, optimistic content. And it's so cool to see that it works just as well. It's actually worked 10 times better than the negative stuff. And so if I could leave anything, I think it's just the fact that you don't have to be whatever the mainstream is. And there is a pocket of positivity that people want in their life. Like, people want to have positive content, wholesome content. It's okay to be family friendly, and you don't have to be like a kid creator. A lot of things like that I'm pretty passionate about, and I think just being yourself is extremely liberating, and it is possible to achieve in that way.
I think the thing that's been most important for me to realize is, if you make something for yourself that you really, really want to watch, that you can't find somewhere else, there are probably other people out there like you. And like, I've made a guess that there are other people out there like that.
I feel like mine has evolved a lot, which is interesting. But for me, what it has always come back to is, I want everyone who watches our content to feel inspired just to try something a little different, or have a different perspective on something they may have had a stereotype about, or a community of people. If we on our team can encourage anyone to just take one step in a different direction, try something different, or think differently about the world around them, then I feel like I've done my job.
So good.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
True.
For us, we just want to create something that can, whether you watch it in 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years, it can tell a beautiful story about humans who lived during this time. And during a time where so much is disconnecting us from our sense of humanity, there's Yes Theory can be there to bring people back to that. So yeah, that's the Yes Theory, the channel, the stories that we tell. We just want it to be this bank of inspiration and moments of feeling connected to our life on the planet together.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Colin?
Yeah, I feel like I would like the people who watch our channel to see this career of being creative as a journey of serving a community that you're a part of and that you care about, and also going through a bit of self-development and understanding yourself. For as much as we talk about business and money and storytelling and careers, I really hope that people who watch see that from our journey, that whenever we've found success, it's because we've been creating things that are serving a community that we're already a part of. Or in Cleo, with you, like creating something that you hope other people might be into too. Like maybe you're developing that community from ground zero. I hope people see that it's like serving a community you care about whilst figuring out who you are.
That's good.
In the process.
Dude,
Colin just say whilst.
I did.
you killed it.
Do you guys want to end on whilst?
The only thing I agree with that. We talk a lot about self-discovery and that like we have to look back in time and be like, why did we keep uploading? That makes no sense. There's something about us that we needed to, work out and solve and prove to ourselves. And I think like the thing that's been the most empowering is that this world lived in my imagination for a long time and then it came true. And that's a really strange and surreal experience. And I hope that people look at our story and they believe that whatever it is, whether it's creating videos or not, that whatever world exists in their imagination is possible as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Thank you guys for
Thanks for
joining.
doing this with us.
And we'll see you guys on August 27th at the Streamies. Michelle will be rooting you on to beat Hot Ones. Ammar, I'm seriously, I texted Tommy, I said, I'll shave my head if Yes Theory doesn't win editing.
You heard it here.
Yeah, you heard it here.
I heard it here. Shave my head if Yes Theory doesn't win editing. I think Yes Theory has to
They've
win.
they've just worked their asses off for years.
Yeah.
For all of us, like you guys know what it's like to have a team behind. And I just want it for them so badly. So hopefully.
Well, a win for editing is also a win for these guys because they were.
Well,
on the
we're not
editing.
part of this team. I'm not taking credit for that. Yeah. Zach and Ryan, hope you guys can remain friends if one of you wins.
It's gonna be let's be honest.
And Cleo, the video you're up for is just so good. I'm
Yes.
so excited for you to be a part of this community and like to I don't know, just to get to spend time with you was so great today. So thank you guys so much for joining us. And we will hopefully do this again soon.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.